stand stable. I feel able to turn the tables, I could do this. Just keep moving, keep your hands up, stupid. I feel lucid, a new viewing. I can see the end, I can see my future, I can view it. It's right there for the taking. Everything I've ever wanted, dreams are just waiting. I just gotta fight for it, willing to die for it, willing to like sort of.
Hey, greetings from the year 3000, it still sucks. This is Philip J. Price, and you're listening to the Drunken Turkey Show, your one stop for this sort of thing. Hit that button, like and subscribe, you know what to do, just like every other podcast.
Just like every other podcast, and also no need to adjust you guys' screens or phones. We are on time. It is happening. We went live at 7 p.m. a little bit earlier. We're going to try this. We're going to see if a little bit earlier time slot, works. And you guys let us know what you think about us going on at 11 at 7 opposed to 7:35. But with that being said, Big Blue, how you doing, my man?
Doing good, man. Doing good. A little under the weather, but I'm here. I'm hanging in here.
Man, I hear you. I hope you feel better.
Yeah, I'm off tonight, so I got one day to recover, and then I work the next 5. So got a messed up schedule this time.
Yeah. Well, you know how they do it, man. We're cool. They'll ride you until the wheels fall off. You know what I'm saying? So. Real quick, guys, I've got some interesting and good news for you guys. If you guys are ever interested in meeting us, well, I'm not sure if Hyman and Blue are going to be out there. They're still up on the air, but I am. I'm going to be out in Junction, Texas, on April 6th. For those that live in Texas, there's something called the Tex Eclipse. Out on April 6th, there's going to be an eclipse, a complete solar eclipse, and I'm going to be out there at this event called Tex Eclipse. It's a music festival. Let me see. I'm going to try to share this. Here it is. There's going to be a few people that are going to be out there rocking it. Tex Eclipse Music Festival. It's going to be from, I believe it's going to be April 6th through the 8th. There you go. Out in Junction, Texas. You're going to have musicians like Rick Trevino, Sonny Sweeney, Hooks and the Huckleberries, and more, including wrong way, my buddy Daniel. This is a good friend of mine. He's going to be out there on the 6th at 6 p.m. and that's the time that I'll be out there watching my good friend. He's a singer-songwriter. He'll be performing, Daniel T. and the Old Buffalo. You can go check me out there, check him out. It'll be great. Let me show you guys where this is at and where to go and all that other good stuff.
Yeah, man, I like Daniel. He's got some good music.
Yeah, man, he's very talented.
Yeah. I don't know, man. I have to see because this month I'm working every weekend this schedule, so I have stuff going on during the week.
Got you. Yeah, no
Today,
biggie, man.
I'm not drinking an alcoholic beverage. I wish I was. Maybe I might sneak in some whiskey just to help with the nose allergies, but. Some agua de coco.
Nice.
I've
never had it, man.
Oh, I love them, dude. I've been drinking this instead of drinking some of the electrolytes.
Yeah.
Sometimes, these don't have electrolytes much, but they got potassium.
Yeah.
And it's good for you when you're feeling a little low on energy. Potassium's, but you lose sometimes when you get dehydrated.
For sure. And just if you guys are interested in getting tickets for this event, just go to texeclipsemusicfestival.com and you can go and get that there. I'll make sure to put that in the live chat here in a sec. Go check that out. I'm gonna be out there on the 6th, and this is going to be at I believe it's called the Hill Country Fairgrounds out there in Junction, Texas. Just go check it out. You won't be disappointed. We got a couple of new members. I want to say thank you to Ozzy. Welcome to the membership. Welcome to the hood.
Just don't be biting no bats' heads.
Yeah. We got Jordan in for her 7 months. Welcome. Thank you.
Hey, everybody, thank you for being here tonight.
And so with that being said, let's get into today's topic. We got two things we're going to talk about. The first thing we're going to go into is there's some new documents that have been dropped in the Bryan Kohberger case. And we're going to go through it, what it means, what we expect to see, why we expect to see it happen. And then we're going to go into one of the biggest theories when it comes to the Bryan Kohberger case, at least in our comment section and in our emails and messengers, is that Bryan Kohberger may have been framed. So we're going to go and really deep dive into, that theory. Does it make sense? Does it fit? Does it not? So stay tuned for all that. But without further ado, let's break it down. Let's get into the this new document. So this is going to be a motion for a change of venue. First and foremost, Big Blue, are you surprised that a change of venue was requested?
No, they had already mentioned it a few times. But that's what they were going to want. That they think that they would have a fair trial somewhere else.
Right. I agree. I wasn't surprised. I think that he's going to end up getting it. I'll read through it real quick. It says, it comes now Bryan Kohberger through his attorneys. Hereby move this court for a change of venue. Bryan Kohberger requests a jury pool from outside Latah County. Motion is pursuant made to the 5th, 6th, 8th, and 14th Amendment. A fair and impartial jury cannot be found in Latah County owing the extensive inflammatory pretrial publicity. Allegations made about Mr. Kohberger to the public by media will be inadmissible at this trial. The small size of the community, the salacious nature of the alleged crimes, and the severity of the charges Mr. Kohberger faces. Enlarging the jury pool will not do anything to overcome the persuasive prejudicial publicity because Latah County does not have a large enough population center to avoid the bias in the community. Further, the size of the community and the interconnections of the citizenry is problematic and will prevent a fair and impartial pool of potential jurors. Mr. Kohberger, and by through his counsel, requests the opportunity to be heard through evidentiary presentation and argument no sooner than the end of April 2024. So we might get an answer on this, before that. And when it comes to the frame job, I know that, I got some stars here that says, take a poll. Well, we will do that at the end of the show. After we've gone through everything, I will ask you guys, what you guys think, and we'll take a poll on that aspect. Now, go back to this. I'm not surprised whatsoever that they're asking for a change of venue. I think they should give it to him. Big Blue, do you think that they should do this in Moscow and Latah County, or do you think they should move this?
I mean, I think it's probably best if they do move it. Maybe they can have the trial even sooner. Because the excuse is they can't have it there during the spring or fall because of the schools. So what if they move it to a county where there is no, college there, and they can have the court sooner? It would be beneficial for everybody. I mean, none of the families, I think, were even from this area. They were all from out of the area. So they're still driving in, flying in anyway. So I think that might be a better idea. Pressure the defense to get a sooner date.
I agree. I think that, and you bring up a great point. Push the defense or push it for a sooner date. I think the fact that they're wanting to, well, let me put it this way. I think the prosecution played their hand. They said that they can only do this for 6 weeks, or not through 6 weeks, but through the break time in between, spring and fall sessions, right, in the summertime. And the problem with that is you basically put yourself out there that if you cannot do it by the following summer, that you have to push it out an entire year. Now, that's not fair to the victims. That's not fair to Bryan Kohberger. He deserves to go to trial in the moment that he is ready to go to trial. or is deemed appropriate to be ready to go to trial. And, just pushing it out because, the prosecutor feels that it would favor the city, the school, and the university more if this trial was pushed to that time frame. And when you listen to what Ann Taylor said in their most recent hearing, she mentioned and brought up that this was going to take longer than 6 weeks. And she thought it was going to take about 12 to 15 weeks. Now, we really think that it's going to be like, do you really think that they would be that far off on how long this trial should last? I don't think so. I think that, she definitely can drag it out this long. I mean, obviously you could, but, I don't think that, the prosecution is going to be off by that much. I think it's a tactic and efforts to force the change of venue, because if they put aside 15 weeks, you're going to go, you're definitely, going in between, starting off in the spring semester and ending in the fall. Like, you're not going to get around it for about 6 weeks or so. You're still going to have that problem. And, I think that was the first thing that they said they were going to do. And also they said that if, they talked about at earliest, April, May, or March of 25, and that even summer of 25 was being optimistic. I'll tell you this, if they don't change the venue, by then, or if they deny this, they're going to try to push it to pass the summer of 2025 and then try to go to court before the summer of 2026 in efforts to push this somewhere else. And I think that if that's the case, we're just going to go in a big circle. It's the same thing that we're saying about the defense. You can say it about the prosecution in this situation. You're just going to go in a big old circle and end up right where you're at. And it's going to just take more and more time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Give Kohberger and his attorneys the change of venue. If the case is that strong, they shouldn't worry. You know what I mean? What do you think, Blue?
Yeah, the only thing that would be affected is, I think, is nothing, because they don't have the house nowhere to walk through. The evidence can be bussed and housed in the evidence locker wherever they go.
Mm-hmm.
The witnesses can travel. The families can travel. I think it'd be a win-win, hey, and they can do the trial sooner.
I agree. I feel that,
jumping through all these loops.
I agree. Do you think that if they were to change the venue here, and they're wanting to do this in April of 2024, I think that if they end up doing that, we might see something in January of 25.
Yeah, I'd say
what I mean?
25, maybe a preliminary hearing in November, October, like most cases. They try to get a preliminary hearing in those times.
Well, they already passed that. They already passed the preliminary hearing.
They
They chose the indictment. Yeah, so they're ready to go to trial, and I don't see it happening. If it passes the summer, right? You have a brief area right then and there between September and early November. Once you get into like the Thanksgiving time frame, forget it. There's too many holidays. So I think that you have to probably get this thing going in October. And if it doesn't get going in October, based on the time frame that they're allowing for this to happen, this definitely isn't going to start until at least January of 25.
Yeah. No, I think that sounds more like a realistic number if they can change the venue. And it ain't about worrying about the schools and hotels.
Yeah. I mean, do you see a benefit for the prosecution by not changing the venue in this situation? Like, where's the benefit if they keep it there?
Not really. I mean, because they were talking about doing jury pools from other places already. So the jury pool is going to be different counties anyways. They're different people. There is no
Yeah.
benefit, you know.
Yeah,
The
I agree,
only
man.
benefit is maybe
I mean, the benefit
shorter
there
drive for
is
them, or their office is closer to them. That's the only benefit they have.
right. And the other benefit is that they're hoping they get, the benefit that they do get is that most likely people from the same community are hearing about this incident, right? So it's on the news, it's on those type of things. So he's not going to get an impartial a jury who hasn't heard about the case or has an opinion about the case already from that area. So, that's a big aspect as to it as well. But when it comes to if the goal is to find an impartial jury, right? That's the goal. So the prosecution, their goal is to find people as well that aren't aware of this case, even though if they did, it may or may not benefit them, because it also could not benefit them. They could get somebody out there, on the jury that's been really invested in this case, who, maybe follows a different creator who, has been, shown the information and the evidence to the point where there's some question marks there, right? And they might have that predetermined notion that this guy is innocent no matter what comes out. You don't want that. So I don't see the benefit at all by keeping it in Latah County, like outside of their personal benefits, as you mentioned.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing else. I mean, everybody has heard about it, at least in the state. I mean, most people have. They watch the news. And even people in the small towns, they'll forget about it. Some people don't pay attention to the news, and so I think it's fair either way.
Yeah, I get it, but given the high profileness to this case and the small community that's there, I'm not opposed to a change of venue. In fact, maybe perhaps it should be done on a on every case. Maybe you shouldn't be tried in the county that you've committed a crime or alleged to have committed a crime, because there is news media, there is biases that is presented against you. I wouldn't be opposed to that. I know it'd probably cost a little bit, but if you had some sort of, I don't know, exchange program with a nearby city or county, I don't know, maybe that's the fair way of getting things done. Black and Gold comes in with his 8-month membership comment saying, expect Ann Taylor to use the community to her advantage. I agree. And Jordan asked, could you guys be on the jury hypothetically? Hypothetically, if they look into our background and see, that we've been on here, we've had vetted interest into this case, no, we would be kicked out immediately.
Yeah, they would say not you guys.
Yeah,
you guys are too experienced.
You guys have already figured it out. We can't have you on there.
And somebody sees me chewing after I drink. This has coconut pieces in it. That's why I chew after I drink. I know how to drink, okay, guys.
Or maybe it's expired, bro. I mean, I don't know anybody that chews milk. I'll just leave
this
it
is
at that.
coconut water.
Oh, it's water. I don't know anybody that chews water either, bro.
Yeah, I like that they have chunks. It's like the little Asian ones that have the little jellos, like boba, but these have coconut chunks.
Nice. So, all in all, I guess we're in agreement here that he should probably get his change of venue, and I don't see any issue with it. I hope he gets it, because that's one less thing that he can appeal later on as well. You know what I mean? It's one less thing that he can appeal, and like his lawyer said, that they're going to be fighting this for the next 28 years. Well, you can take a year off because they won't be fighting the fact that the venue was, or the jury was, tampered in some sort of way. So I think they should do it. I personally do. But moving on, let's go to the second topic of today's show, and that's going to be this frame theory that keeps circulating throughout our comment section, our emails and stuff like that. And I felt that it's probably good to address it, look into it, actually, look at why and who and what, when, where, and why, and all that other good stuff as to the possibility of this happening. And so, first and foremost, who could have framed Bryan Kohberger? I think that the biggest players, or whatever you want to call them, suspects in this theory, and again, this is a theory and this isn't our theory at all, is the police and or Sigma Chi and or another fraternity slash sorority. There it goes. So which one do you want to start off first with, police or the fraternity?
We'll do the fraternity.
All right, let's do the fraternity. So, all right, first and foremost, how do they know Bryan Kohberger to have framed him? Now, based on Bryan Kohberger's defense attorney's own written statement, there is no connection between Bryan Kohberger and the victims. Would you say that you would agree that Ethan is a victim, right?
Yes.
A lot of people look at just the girls and they don't realize that Ethan also is a victim here. And, he was a part of that fraternity that has been suspected of committing this crime, right?
Yeah, I think that's crazy, man. Like, I think if it was like a fraternity, they wouldn't be able to keep it silent. You know what I mean? These guys.
Fraternity. Fraternity means.
I don't know. I said fraternity.
No, he said fraternity.
Oh man, that means I'm pregnant.
But where I'm getting at is, how would they know who he is? And, if Ann Taylor is saying there's no connection, would you agree that if Bryan Kohberger was connected to Sigma Chi from somehow, whether it was drug related, he was the drug persons, whatever the case may be, would you consider that a connection to one of the victims?
No, not really. No. I mean,
I would.
I think when you go into a college that big, you're gonna know people from all types of, college life, and they're gonna know people from certain fraternities or sororities.
What about a roommate?
Yeah, and it could be an ex-roommate that ended up going to go stay at a fraternity.
No, like a roommate. Would you consider somebody, Bryan Kohberger, knowing a roommate of one of the deceased? Would that be considered a connection?
That can be, yeah.
Okay, well, some of these fraternity guys were roommates of Ethan, so in that same sense, it's still a connection, in my opinion. And you can't go and say there's no connection between, you and the victims at all, like none. He lived in Pullman. They lived in Moscow, Idaho. He went to, he went to Washington State University. They went to the University of Idaho. There should be no connection, no anything. Second thing is, all right, if these fraternity guys committed this crime, they would have had to have committed this crime. Well, first and foremost, why did they commit the crime? It's been stated that there was a fight, and that one of these fraternity guys was made fun of, and he wanted to fight Ethan. It was broken up, and they went their separate ways. Right. First, from what I understand, there was a lot of alcohol being consumed at this party. Second, the accusation towards the fraternity student was one of steroids, and possible roid rage. And rage is a big component to the crime. Third, this person was mad enough to fight this guy, or cause a scene in front of the entire party. All right, so those are the things that we know. We know that this crime was committed in the dead of night by somebody very silent and left very little evidence. There is audio from 50 feet away that picks up whimpers. It doesn't pick up the sound of anybody acting in rage. Somebody with rage or roid rage is yelling, screaming. A guy that was willing to go and fight this guy or harm this guy in front of the entire party. Is he the guy that's going to be driving around 4 times before he gets off and silently goes into the house?
Yeah, I mean,
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I get it. One of the things that I think is why it cannot be them is, I mean, there's no. You'd think it'd be more than just one guy going in there and doing this, because fraternity guys normally hang out with a few guys.
That's true. So that's also the other thing is, a lot of the theory is that Bryan Kohberger couldn't have done this by himself.
Yeah.
So that's a good point, and that's another reason why they did it. But carry on.
But there's no evidence of multiple shoe prints, multiple people getting out of the car that we know of,
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing is they wouldn't be able to get his DNA unless they directly knew him to be able to get it under the knife sheath button. So,
and that is where the next question comes: is when did they plant his DNA on the knife sheath? Right. Well, first let's talk about the knife sheath. One of the big conspiracies there is that there just so happened to be a single piece of DNA and it wasn't covered or soaked in blood and this, that, and the third because it was under the bodies. From what I understand is that the sheath was buttoned down, facing down. So the top part of that sheath would have been the part that was exposed to the blood. Now, Blue, can you tell me how leather reacts to liquid? Does it soak it? Is it waterproof? Is it repel it? What happens?
Most of the time it repels it, but it can't stain the leather.
But does it like if you were wearing socks and you put some leather boots on and you stuck those leather boots in a puddle where the water doesn't go above the opening of the hole at the top, would your foot get wet?
No,
it wouldn't.
Shit.
So the fact that the material of the sheath was leather and it was facing down shielded it from all that other blood and any other liquidy material that may have gone on top of it. The other thing is inside the button snap. So somebody had to get DNA inside that button snap. It wasn't on top of the button or on top of where the button was snapping. Right. And, if this, sheath was covered in blood everywhere else on the opposite side, you would expect that the bottom side, especially inside of the button of the snap, if there was DNA to be found, that there'd be a high possibility that it would be found in that location. Does that sound accurate?
It sounds pretty accurate, yeah.
So, I just think that it was definitely there and it was definitely picked up. So what do we know? We know that at 4 p.m. the next day, based on documents, and we'll go through them. In fact, I'll show you guys. Let me see where it's at. Let me share this real quick. And this is the document. This is Blaker's Exhibit A, Dustin Blaker's affidavit. And when they go up to the second floor, so let's see, it's right. It says here, as I entered, I could see 2 females in a single bedroom. Both Goncalves and Mogen were deceased with visible stab wounds. I was later advised by ISP investigators they located a leather tan sheath laying on the bed next to Mogen's right side. And then in parentheses, it says when viewed from the door. Let's talk about that. So ISP investigators. That means what? Idaho State Police forensic investigators, I'm assuming. That's probably what that is and who that is. Why would they have to? Why would they be advising him?
Probably not to contaminate the scene, maybe.
Oh, well, yeah, but they advised him because they recovered it. So ISP is who recovered, this sheath, and ISP lab, the Idaho State lab, is who discovered the DNA profile and created the STR profile. Now, the Idaho State lab isn't in Moscow. I think it's in Boise. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure it's definitely not in Moscow. And I say this because that sheath went from that scene to Boise. Where and how would these fraternity guys plant Bryan Kohberger's DNA after the fact, after they committed this crime?
They couldn't.
They would have had to have had his DNA prior to the crime and have purposefully planted it there. There's no way they could have done it after. I mean, they could have done it after the fact, but where would they get his DNA? According to Ann Taylor, there's no connection between the two. And if there was, don't you think that Bryan Kohberger's, attorney would say, hey, he knew some of the Sigma Chi guys, they've hung out, they've shook hands before. Sigma Chi guys live with Ethan Chapin. There's a transfer there. You can figure that out. So if they knew each other, he would, Ann Taylor would be saying it, right?
Yeah.
So
I just think that it'd be just way too hard to do. Even a trained professional wouldn't be able to get the samples sometimes to be able to put under that sheath. I mean, it's
right. No, obviously they couldn't. But, just to make sure we cover all of our bases, because that's what I want to do. I want to cover all bases, make sure that, we can determine that this is either plausible or impossible, right? So these guys would have had to have known Bryan Kohberger before, had to have had his DNA beforehand, and known that that was the guy that they were going to frame when they went into that house. Question would be, why him? There's no connection. Like I said, Bryan Kohberger's attorney would be screaming if there was a connection there.
Yeah, she would definitely be trying to get that thrown in there so she can have some doubt in his timeline and story.
Right.
But she doesn't have the evidence for it.
Yeah. Yeah. And what it also would tell me is that, somebody going into that house, Bryan Kohberger would have been probably one of the targets as well. And, the target was to ruin his life. But if they're able to, if they were willing to go and take the lives of 4 other people, why not just do the same to Kohberger if he was a target? And thirdly, where did they get the DNA to put on the knife sheath if by his own admittance that he was out and about that night driving alone, not hanging out anywhere, not stopped anywhere where somebody could, transfer DNA to the real person that committed this crime? Those are the things and those are the questions that come into that aspect because those things aren't there. Right. And the other thing I want to say about this is when viewed from the door. I don't understand why people think that this means that you can see the knife sheath from the door. Right. That just means that where they're standing at the door, if they look at Maddie Mogen to her, to the right side of her is where this knife sheath was. And we know later that it's partially underneath of her. We also know that, Kaylee was, found up against the wall, right? And sitting over slouched. So we can probably put together two and two together that, Maddie was probably laying on her side, which is why it says on the right side of her. And when it says viewed from the door, it doesn't mean that they viewed the sheath. It means that's where they're standing at. So if they could see it from the door, it would say something to the effect was, from the door, I could see a tan leather sheath. It doesn't say that. It says, I could see a tan leather sheath on this side of this person when you're looking from the door or located. So that doesn't mean you can see the sheath. Now, I got a question for you, Boo. You're in the medical field. Where are your lungs located, more in the front of your body or more towards the back?
They're right under your ribs, so it's both.
It's both.
Yeah, I mean, we're more towards the front, but I mean, you can reach them from the back. But you got to go through the back muscles more, and then you got to go through the ribs, because they're encaged in your ribs.
Yeah. Do you think that if somebody was laying facing towards the wall and, a knife came in towards the back, that, especially somebody the size of Madison Mogen, do you think a 7-inch blade could, collapse a lung in that situation?
Oh, yeah. I mean, as she was not a really thick person, she was a smaller person, so 7 inches can go probably right through her.
Yeah. Yeah, you're probably right. And, would that take more than one strike to collapse the lung and cause no screams or anything?
I mean, it had to be a good strike, but I think I would have to see the wounds to see where he got hit, but I mean, I'm pretty sure he subdued the first one.
Right. No, yeah, I'm pretty sure. But what I'm trying to say is, like, based on what we're seeing here, I think that Maddie was laying on her side. She was probably facing one way or the other, obviously, but their head was towards the wall, not towards the door. And I think that obviously Bryan Kohberger attacked Maddie first. Kaylee may have woken up in that moment. And at that time that she waking up, she's trying to get away. You're going to pull back from where, towards where your head is facing. Right. So she's going to pull back up and kind of get up against the wall. And then, that's where he attacked her. And probably where, Dylan heard the noises that she heard. You know what I mean? But let's go back to this. So then there's the how, right? Like, how are these guys going to do it? This guy was drunk. The accusation on the fraternity guys was that it was, roid rage. So drunk and mad, they commit 4 crimes without leaving his DNA at all, and simultaneously frames Bryan Kohberger. How believable is that to you, Blue?
It's pretty hard to put together in the short period of time of the fight, and to get an identical car as his, and to, it's implausible to me.
Yeah, I don't think that it's plausible given the circumstances in which why, they say that this crime was committed, and then the frame, and why Kohberger, that can't be answered. The only thing there's nothing that makes sense there, as far as it being them. It kind of answers a question like, was there a fight? Was there a motive, for somebody to do this? And, Ethan supposedly got in a fight that night with somebody at that party. I don't know if it's true or not, but that's been what's been said. And I think that typically those type of situations don't lead to what we see. And with the evidence that's there, that doesn't make too much sense. So I think that when you look at it all in all, there's absolutely 0% chance that the Sigma Chi guys framed Bryan Kohberger, in my opinion. So let's talk about the police. All right, so let's start off with why would the police frame Bryan Kohberger? Kohberger was new to the area. He'd only been there for a few weeks, like 8 or 7 weeks. Oh wait, hold on. He was there since July? Put it August, September, October, November. So he was there for about what was that, like 4 months? That's 12 weeks. And somehow in between that time, they knew that they wanted to frame him. He wasn't even from the area. They pulled him over a couple of times, but I don't think they had a history of him. Like there are certain like individuals that officers will recognize and they'll know. They'll call them, one term I've heard people call some of these individuals like the all-stars. These are repeat offenders that continually get in trouble. And Kohberger didn't seem like he was in line with that. Right? I don't think that there was that was there. So how did they know him? How did they know who he was and that he would have been recognizable to be the person to frame?
And the only time that I think that there's documentation of him is like when he got pulled over for was it blocking the crosswalk, right? Or when he was turning?
Yeah.
And then I can't remember what the infraction was. It's been a while since we reviewed it. And then the only other reason they would have known him was when he was applying for the internship, but that would have been like through the HR department or the chief, not even through the officers. So I don't know.
Right. I agree with that. I mean, you're absolutely right. That's how they would have known him, was through the times that he'd applied. I'm not sure he'd applied with Moscow though. I know he'd applied with Pullman.
Yeah,
I know that the email that was released was with the chief of police of Pullman, in Pullman.
Right,
you know what I mean?
Right. So I don't think they would have known him there.
All right. So the next thing is like we don't know why, but let's just say somebody has some sort of vendetta against Bryan Kohberger. Now, when would they have framed him or decided to frame him? And why would they use? So somebody said that the police framed, Bryan Kohberger. The same situation happens that we spoke about earlier, where ISP, which is a different, Idaho State, which is a completely different entity than, Moscow Police Department, are the ones who collected and analyzed that piece of evidence. They took it from Moscow. So the question is, when did they plant Bryan Kohberger's DNA on that sheath? Because it was taken pretty much immediately out that direction. And, we also have to remember that we're in 2024. This isn't 1995, like the movie Gridlock, where an officer goes to the back and there's this big cage and there's an officer there with a sign-in sheet, so that people can walk in and grab all the evidence that they can and look at any evidence that they want. And it didn't work like that then. It doesn't work like that now. Right. And so when would they have had the opportunity? They would have had to have planted that DNA during the time of the crime. So that would in turn mean that the real target was Bryan Kohberger, and that the victims in this case were just collateral damage to ruin his life.
Yeah, that's why that theory I think is just bogus too. Like it's too
It is bogus.
I know it's bogus, but it's too much to theoreticalize that.
Yeah.
when you look at the other evidence, and it makes more sense to me.
Yeah. Now let's just say that they somehow could have gotten, Bryan Kohberger's DNA and planted it for some reason. Why Kohberger again? Like, what did he do? If this was something that had nothing to do with Kohberger, let's just say, or nothing to do with the frame job, and this was or let's just say that this hadn't have police targeting Kohberger, and instead somebody did take the lives of these individuals, our victims, and they framed Bryan Kohberger, and it was what do you call it, man? I'm losing my train of thought here. What was I saying, Blue? I was going too far with it, and I lost my thought there.
No, they were like framing Bryan Kohberger. The police were, but
right. I remember now. Thank you. So let's just say the police didn't go in there with the intention to frame Kohberger, right? Somebody else committed this crime, and because of pressure from the University of Idaho is when they decided to frame Kohberger. Again, the how, like, he's not affiliated with, in there in Moscow, at least. He didn't have a rap sheet. He hadn't been pulled over multiple times for high heinous crimes.
Maybe because they saw that he was a rapper and they didn't like his kind of music,
Right.
Yeah, that could have been it. Song out there.
He was trying to be the next rapper. Yeah. I mean, those things don't make sense. And then, like when and where did they get Bryan Kohberger's DNA? He himself, like I said before, stated that he was out driving around by himself that night. So he didn't come in contact with one of the officers that night. He didn't shake hands with anybody from the forensic team. Because again, if he was familiar with somebody that was involved in the case to that extent, don't you think that Ann Taylor would have been using that as a possibility for transfer?
Yeah, definitely she would be using it. Anything she could to be able to get, any slight, negative publicity to get her way.
Yeah. Well, you're right. And here I brought up the actual affidavit, Exhibit A, of, and basically been used as. Probably everything in here is the probable cause affidavit when it comes to what they used to get an arrest warrant for him. But right here it says, I noticed what appeared to be a tan leather knife sheath laying on the bed next to Mogen's right side. Again, and then parentheses, when viewed from the door. Not that the sheath was visible from the door, just that this is where it was from that position. So, it's crazy. There's still 25%. I mean, it's not crazy. I mean, you have your right to your own opinion and stuff like that. 25% still think he's been framed at this point. I mean, like I said, you have your rights to your opinion and stuff. I don't see it. I don't see where it makes sense. I think that it's come down to a frame job because nothing else fits. It's the only way, he can be innocent because all the evidence points at him. It has to be a frame. You know what I mean?
I mean, even at that, the evidence point at him more than some of the other cases that I've seen. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
There's a case that just got tried the other day. Nobody witnessed the lady commit the crime, but because she made threatening comments the day before, I think eventually they got camera footage, but there was no eyewitness. Like, I think they had her car coming in.
Yeah.
To the crime. She got convicted. So that, there is digital footprints, and they go by your phone and stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah, no, there definitely is. And, you know, they're going to be able to see that. You know, I'm glad you brought up the phone because they have his GPS locations. So all the talk about 27-mile radius on triangulation and stuff, that goes out the window. You know, the fact that they were able to triangulate him on those days means that his phone was connected to the network, which means that his phone was on, which means more than likely, you know, he didn't have his phone on airplane mode. Obviously, it was connected. So most likely all those applications that are running that you give permission for your locations were on. And we're going to know exactly where he was and how far he was. And, you know, if he says that he's been in that house, you know, he's going to have to say that he went when his phone was off because, you know, if it shows that he never was inside. Now, if it does show that he's inside, but it's like at a weird hour, like at, you know, 2 p.m, while, you know, the victims were at school or work, that's another question. You know what I mean?
Yeah, man. There's a lot of crazy theories out there. I mean, I saw one today. Somebody said, well, maybe it's just, you know, somebody he hired to prove his theories and of his Reddit he was working on, his project. I don't know, man. That's one of those theories out there too. That's right here.
Yeah, I don't think anybody hired him.
Not him. He hired somebody else.
He hired somebody to do what?
I remember when he put out the Reddit that.
That he hired like Inside Looking and Papa Rogers to throw people off.
No. I'm talking about. There's a theory out there that's saying that because of the people he was able to interview with his Reddit about committing crimes and getting away with it.
Yeah, that Reddit.
Yeah, I think there's people out there saying, well, he hired one of those guys to do this job to see if they can get away with it.
True.
Yeah.
That's true.
There'd be evidence. I think there'd be digital trail probably. Like I said, there's theories out there that are just crazy, and some might make more sense than others.
Yeah, in most cases, there's a digital trail unless you're talking to somebody who knows how to cover their tracks. And obviously, in this situation, whoever committed this crime knew how to cover their tracks really, really good. And you can only cover by so much, right? There's no such thing as the perfect crime. You know, this was pretty close. You know, he didn't leave any of his DNA on the bodies. He didn't transfer any DNAs of the victims. He left his knife sheath behind with his DNA on that. And had they not known that, I think that, you know, I think they eventually would have found him because of his disturbing behavior and his actions that he was doing while he was at WSC. I assume that at a certain point, somebody's going to say, hey, this guy is, you know, got some disturbing things going on, and he drives a white Elantra. Maybe you should look into him. And then once they do, it wouldn't have been long before they found the evidence. Right? Like there's no such thing as the perfect crime. And it comes down to like the first part of that is the alibi. You know, you can't have a legitimate alibi if you were committing a crime, right? You would have to have somebody either lie for you or disguise. I wouldn't know, you know, but at the end of the day, there wouldn't be there, you know, if you told somebody that you were somewhere else while you know, something happened somewhere else, there's going to be evidence there, whether there's cameras down the road from where you live, if there's cameras coming from one direction or another, it's going to show something, right? Because if there's a crime that was committed at 8 o'clock in the afternoon and the person that you suspect lives, you know, 40 minutes away from that place, and you can expect to see that person leave their house, you know, somewhere between an hour and a half to 45 minutes before they arrive or before the time of death. You know, if you see him leaving his house 15 minutes till, then it's not him. If you don't see him leave his house at all, probably not him. But if you see him leave his house at that point, doesn't necessarily mean that it's him, but it check marks a box, right? And then you think to yourself, all right, well, if this person, left their house at this time and they made it to this place, they must have traveled there somehow. So there should be some evidence that that's the direction they went. So you go and find the, stop cameras here and there and on that way. And if he didn't go that way, you won't see him. But if he did, he'll be right there. So I mean, that's how you track down some people. It's very easy once you get the right person. Once you get their name, it's very easy to trace them down and to know what happened. Proving it, it's a different story. But knowing what happened, knowing, piecing it together, it's there.
And then the rest is, like he's pleading the fifth because anything he can say will be used against him.
100%. Lorraine asked, where do you think they'll move the case to? So they can't move it to Washington, even if, or Pullman or anything, that direction. I think there's Lewiston area. I'm got to pull up a map. I'm not familiar with that area, but I would probably think that there's a larger city just south of that area. Let me pull up my maps real quick. Obviously, I don't live in Idaho. I've never been there. I'm just going.
They would find somewhere more suitable for the amount of press and the amount of they can handle the amount of influx of people there for the case, the families, the media, and then just everybody that's working on the case. They would have to have somewhere they have enough hotel rooms, so it'd have to be somewhere a little bit more bigger.
Yeah, Lewiston. That's another border town on Washington and Idaho side. That's a pretty large-ish, area. I think that would probably be the place. The next one, you might think maybe Coeur d'Alene. That one's kind of close and not too far away, but Coeur d'Alene is also where some of the victims are from. So I'm not sure if that's going to be a place where you're going to see the defense want to go. You know what I mean? So it'd probably be Lewiston, if not Boise, one of the larger areas where, they are accustomed, or maybe not accustomed, but they can handle, large crimes and high profile crimes like that. Where do you think they're going to move it, Blue?
I don't know, man. I don't know if they have, like I said, a bigger city that can handle the amount of people that are going to move there, or maybe they have a federal courthouse somewhere that they can use. It's bigger. It can handle. It has more security because that way they can have more. It's always a safety hazard for the police because they have to deal with the people that are out there protesting, and I don't think anybody's been protesting at these, but it can get that bad sometimes.
Yeah, no, I hear you, man. I hear you. But yeah, so yeah, you think it'll be far or not?
I mean, looking at the map, the few times that we have looked at it, I think it would be at least a good 50-mile radius. Because there was a lot of mountains and, countryside. So it had to be in a bigger city.
Yeah. So what we're going to do, guys, I'm going to share the StreamYard. If anybody wants to come on out, they are more than happy. We'll do this for a few minutes. If you think that Bryan Kohberger was framed and there's something that we're missing, we're not going to, belittle you or make fun of you or any of those things. I want to know what it is that you're thinking, so that way I can look at the entire picture. You know what I mean? Does that make sense to you, Blue?
Yeah.
Let me put this in. The StreamYard link is in the chat. Don't worry about turning your camera on or off. It doesn't matter. You're not going to be able to come up on the screen regardless, because of the layout that I have. It is it won't allow anybody else to come on, but it will allow you to have your voice heard, if that makes sense. So it's in the StreamYard. 100%. Come on in. I'd like to hear what you're thinking. It doesn't cost anything. It's like a Zoom call. And like I said, Your face won't come on. I changed the layout on the StreamYard, so when I add whoever it is that comes on, they come on behind the wallpaper here, so they're not visible. Know what I mean?
Yep. Yep. We can't have no peep shows.
No Vienna sausages rolling around. You can't see that. You can't see that. But yeah, if you have, things that or anything at all, I mean, it doesn't even have to be a frame job question. It could have been like, hey, I think Bryan Kohberger didn't do this because, and let me know. We want to know, we want to be fully versed in this case. We want to understand, why there is a movement that says that Bryan Kohberger is innocent. We want to know what is the evidence that is there that indicates that or makes people believe that. I understand, and I'm not talking about those that are saying, innocence until proven guilty or those things. There are some that absolutely say that no way Bryan Kohberger did not do this. It is impossible. That's who I want to kind of hear from. And if you could, just jump on in on the StreamYard. We'll pull you up. And obviously you won't be seen. Just your voice will be heard.
Yeah,
it never happens, man.
Yeah, it's okay. There's another case that maybe y'all might be interested. I saw today that I didn't know about. It was a TikToker that I think she murdered her boyfriend, and I think the parents are getting arrested because they tampered with the evidence. They tampered with his laptop to conceal her. And I just saw a little glimpse of it earlier. I was like, we haven't done that case. I haven't even heard of it till today.
Send it to me, man. You probably already did. You sent me so much stuff. Send it to me again.
Yeah, I'll look into it.
Yeah. But yeah, man, every time I put it out there, for somebody that thinks that Bryan Kohberger didn't do this, right? Not that there's innocence until guilty and all that stuff, that somebody else did it. That they think someone else committed this crime. I've sent out the invitation. I never get anybody, man. Why do you think that is? I mean, obviously, we got some people in here that think he's innocent. I mean, the poll came back at something like 23% of you guys out of 131 votes. That's over 25 people, 30 people. Join the show. I want to know why. That's all I want to know. I want to know the information.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, call him the conspiracy.
I like I said, we'll talk through it. Do you think he didn't do it because this person did it? We'll look at who that person is and how logistically or logically, they fit in it. And nothing. Crickets. If you have a favorite, content creator that thinks he's innocent, that is respectful, and who hasn't bashed us, obviously, you can invite them here too. We're looking for a positive, constructive, grown-up, adult conversation. I don't know. We'll continue to do this.
I stand corrected. It was not a TikToker. She was an OnlyFans.
Oh, hey man, like 13 people jumped off. I guess those were the people that I'm asking them to call.
Yeah.
Nobody yet. And this, and like I said, I'm not going to belittle anybody. I'm not going to laugh at anyone like that. Like nothing. I want to know what it is that makes you think that somebody else did this, and where the evidence is that person committed this crime. Because we're going to go down every avenue of it. We're going to look at that situation like somebody would look at a game of Sudoku, right? And Sudoku, you have 9, you have these boxes of 9 empty spaces, right? For 9 numbers, and there's like 9 boxes of these 9 boxes. And you have to put 1 through 9 in all of the boxes, right? In that one of the smaller ones with 9 little boxes. Horizontally and vertical, you have to have 1 through 9, and they can't also be 2 ones in the same block. And when we look at this case, we'll look at it that way. We're like, all right, you think that this person did it because it fits this one block, but does it fit the other blocks? And we'll look at all of those together in that way. That way we can come to an understanding if it's plausible or impossible or not likely or likely. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I get it. I was looking for the link to reshare it, but I don't know where it went.
It's pinned. You got to get in the it's at the top. I'm gonna end this poll right here with 77% think that he did not get framed. 22% said that he was. 141 votes all in all. So interesting stuff, man. Interesting stuff. Oh, there's one other thing I wanted to talk to you guys about. The timeline. I keep hearing people say, that's the other thing that comes up a lot was, why did police come out with the timeline that they did in the beginning, 3 to 4, and ended up being 4 or something, is when the crime occurred. Well, if you go back and listen to what they were asking for and what the presser says, that they're interested in a vehicle that was seen between, I think it was like 3 and 5 or 3 and 4 in the morning. And that vehicle was seen driving around that area between 3 and 4 in the morning. It was at 3:26, at 3:30 something, and 3:50 something before 4 o'clock. So they said that they wanted to speak with the individual or individuals in the white car that was in the area between that time. And sure enough, he was. So that was one other thing I wanted to bring up. I still don't got anybody willing to come on up. Now, if you want to come up and just kind of talk about anything in particular, I guess, those that are in favor of Kohberger have left the building. But if you want to come up and just talk about anything in general, as far as the case goes, even if you think he is the guy that committed this crime, let us know. Yeah, Lorraine says, based on the evidence I've seen so far, I cannot definitely say that he is guilty or not guilty. Yeah, and nobody can, that answer there, nobody, that's probably the correct or the politically correct answer. You don't want to come up with an idea of guilt before you've seen all the evidence, regardless of how obvious one person may or may not be as far as innocent or guilt. You want to look at the entire thing. And, I think that you can have an idea of where you think you stand as far as, what it is. But I do think that it'd be fair to go into, when trial comes, to go into it with a clear mind. I'm going to put everything behind me and just kind of watch it as if I had no idea about it, and just kind of go based on the evidence that's allowed and presentable in court. You know what I mean? And so, yeah. So I wanted to talk to that. I wanted to touch on the timeline thing, and let's see what else. Oh yeah, also the timeline thing too. Remember, we're also covering the Scott Peterson case, and in that case, he states that he went fishing in the bay, right, and that his wife was abducted by somebody else while he was fishing in the bay. His claims are that because the media and the police acknowledged and put that information out the next day or very soon after, that's when the bodies weren't found until afterwards. And his claim is that they knew, and they put the bodies there because they knew where he was at to frame him. We got our first person to come on in. Whoa, why did it show up? It shouldn't have showed up. Hold on. Give me a sec. Cancel. I got to change the layout. Give me a sec. All right, hold on. You know why? It's because I didn't delete this one. All right, I'm going to have to figure this out. Give me a sec. There it is. There it is. You're on the show, and your camera's not on. There's a little bit of background noise. Who are we speaking with? Oh, jumped off. All right, we got to figure it out. So if anybody wants to jump on in, we can put you up here without showing any of your face or any of those things. I just don't have confidence in law enforcement. Car sat there for at least 11 days when they should have been picked up and away from others. And law enforcement in charge of such a big case for 2 years. I get what you're saying, but does that mean that nobody should be arrested for this case because they didn't move the cars right away? I don't think so. I mean, I think there's enough evidence, not including the cars and the car situation, that allows you to, at least at this point, go to trial and charge him and arrest him for the case. Right. And as far as the evidence goes, because I know that somebody had mentioned that there's not enough evidence for to say that, that he was guilty or not. Let's talk briefly about what evidence they have. So they have was DNA on the sheath. They have a white car without a front license plate driving around the victim's house and around the time when the incident occurred, right? And he happens to drive the same type of vehicle without a front license plate at the time. By his own admittance, he was out and about driving around during the crime, so he wasn't at home asleep. Given the time of hour that this crime occurred, that would be a logical explanation. For most people, like, hey, I was asleep. I don't nothing you can do. He wasn't. He admitted he was out driving around. They have surveillance of the vehicle. They have surveillance of the vehicle in Pullman. They have a couple of receipts, right? They got a receipt for Dickie's outfit, and they have allegedly, I haven't seen it. We haven't seen it on any search warrants, but allegedly they have a receipt for a K-bar knife that can't be found, right? They had his phone pings, which also means they also have his GPS locations at this point. So we're going to know exactly how close he was to that house those 12 times that he's been accused for stalking these girls. And I assume as he was just stalking the girls, and Ethan was a fortunate, added to it. What else do we got from him that I'm missing? But those things alone, in my opinion, make it very difficult for it to be somebody else. For it to be someone else, somebody else would have to be driving a very similar car to him at the same time as him being out at a very odd hour during a specific time, right? Without a front license plate. Like, what are the chances of that on its own? And what are the chances that somebody driving that car would have somehow gotten the DNA of the person driving the other car on his person and put it on the knife sheath, or it transferred to that person's knife sheath? It's got to be astronomical. We have KL back. How's it going, KL?
Good.
Can you hear us?
Yes, can you hear me?
It's coming in pretty choppy. I'm not sure if you have us on something else.
No, just got StreamYard open. Can you hear me?
Well, I can barely hear you. If you have a question, let me know what it is, and then we'll answer that.
Okay, I'm just wondering who it was that Steve Gonzalez was talking to, that he was worried that they'd threatened them, the same people that threatened her. I'm wondering if it's JF family. Because I think Brian's innocent.
Gotcha. Yeah, I am having a little bit of difficulty. I heard that what I heard was you wanted to know or where Steve Goncalves was told something. I didn't catch that part. What was it?
She jumped off.
Oh, okay. When it comes to Steve Goncalves and the Goncalves family, they hired a private investigator. Private investigators have to be former law enforcement or have degrees in criminal justice and have supervision experience. You can't just go and get a license and be a private eye. You have to have certain criteria that you have to meet. And so with that being said, they had somebody who is, probably a former investigator of some form, whether it be in law enforcement or for, lawyers. Lawyers will hire guys to investigate, people or gals or they would hire private investigators to investigate people, whether it be, a family thing where they hire a PI to go and try to find out if somebody's cheating on somebody or if, somebody's violating their court order, things of that nature. So thank you, Debbie, for your $4.99 super chat. All right. But yeah, to go back to that, I think that, a lot of his evidence and stuff that he has is probably from there. I do know that they also contacted and called a lot of Kaylee's friends and people that were on her phone history that they were able to pull from the phone logs. So they talked to a lot of those people, so they got a lot of information from there. I think, I could be wrong, but I think they spoke to the neighbor who had the 1112 Ring camera, and they've, they're aware of that person. So I do know that they've obviously, and also the coroner and whatever the police and detectives have told them up until the point where there was a gag order. So obviously they know quite a bit. Question: what if it's determined a K-bar knife was not the knife used? I mean, there would be ways to determine that, right? So there's metal shavings, right? You can't really tell from the wounds unless it was like a difference in size, right? If the wounds were all like 6-inch or 4-inch wounds, right, then you can assume that at that point, the knife sheath could be something that is not, it's a red herring, right? But if the wounds are as deep as what that weapon is, there's metal shavings that you can probably collect and determine whether or not they were manufactured or forged in the same place with the same type of metal components. And then you have those are pretty much, I think, the only ways you're going to be able to tell. You're not going to be able to tell based on the wounds. We had a forensic death investigator on our show, and what she basically had said is when a person has a sharp object enter their body, and if it hits bones or anything, it will manipulate the blade. And when it comes out and it goes back into the person, if it's struck again, because the blade has been manipulated, it's not going to create the same wound. And if it hits something else and it gets even more manipulated, the next wound will be even more different, if that makes sense. So it would be difficult to determine that, but you can probably check mark and say that a K-bar could have been used in this, and that it is consistent with the wounds that they have, things like that. Thank you for the question. Thank you for your question. Let's see. They have probable cause. However, they're not 100% sure it's his car. They have him in the car. A lot of white cars are very similar looking. We don't know. I will say they can't, that because there was no DNA found in the vehicle from any of the victims, that you can't say 100% sure it's not the same car. If there was DNA there, then it'd be extremely difficult to say that. I mean, to fight that or argue it.
Yeah, the one thing that They tried to link, but his phone was off. Would have been the GPS that night, but they can track it though, going back from the cameras from everybody's cameras and the city cameras. And when he turned his phone back on, and the direction it was coming from.
Yeah. Yeah, you're absolutely right. That's going to be the way they're going to determine if it was him. So they're going to have these cameras that are facing, like Blue said, if this person left Pullman, you would expect them to have left Pullman towards Moscow and a couple of different probably exits. And there's probably, cameras around there. And if they see that vehicle going in that direction, and then they go look at the lights coming into Moscow, the camera's coming into Moscow, and sure enough, within the time frame that you're expecting that vehicle to come through, that vehicle comes through, same, unique descriptor, no front license plate. You can, basically articulate that is the same vehicle. There's the one that left Pullman. And if you can keep your eye on that vehicle as it travels through Moscow, you might be able to track it or trace it all the way to the victim's house. You know what I mean? I want to know about the note from Brian from Montana. Yeah, that's weird. I don't know anything about. I've heard of it, but I don't know anything about that. Let's see. We got about another 5 minutes, y'all. If nobody jumps on or has any more questions, we're going to be jumping off. So hit us with your best shot, like the song goes. Also touch their Wi-Fi. I talked to Christy about that, and I'm not sure. Hearing her explanation, if it's accurate or not. Well, not so much accurate that if the information that they're saying is accurate, because they, she told me that it's in the probable cause affidavit, and it's not. Let's see. Transferred DNA still originates at BK. Yeah. The DNA is single source, and that's huge. Yeah, that is huge. That is single source. It means it's not mixed. It's not anybody else's. They didn't have to separate it. It's one person's. So if it's single source and it was in the button of the button sheath, right? How did the person who framed him not get their DNA mixed into it? Right? Let's just say it was an accident. If it was some mishap, Bryan Kohberger touched a doorknob, because everybody talks about that one case where this one guy touched a doorknob, paramedic touched a doorknob, and then they got DNA, on each other's DNA, right? And then it was transferred to some guy that got killed. And so if Bryan Kohberger touched a doorknob, how does this play into that? What do you think, Blue?
It'd just be too hard for them not to get their DNA also under that knife sheath.
Right. I wouldn't. Here's the other thing. So I think that you would see two people's DNA under there if that was the case. If it was by accident. But carry on, Blue.
And then the other thing that I think that doesn't explain why there was no other DNA on there is, say he bought it at a store, it would be in a box, right? So and it would probably be wrapped. So the only way it would be touched was from the manufacturers, and they wore gloves. So the only other people that would have touched it were the people that opened it from the boxes.
Right. So, and I know a lot of people are saying gloves, and that's how you put his DNA on there without putting yours. But then again, that goes back to the framing job. If somebody's wearing gloves and putting Bryan Kohberger's DNA inside the button, that's a frame job. And the question is, when did they know they were going to frame Kohberger? When did they plant it? Yeah. It goes down that entire line, which is very unlikely.
And so the other thing was, Kohberger would have said that from the beginning. I've been framed. That would have been the best alibi he could have put out there. It's crazy, but he could say, that's why I would throw my trash out with my gloves on, So they wouldn't get my DNA no more and stuff like that. He was paranoid, but or something. I don't know.
Yeah. I saw one question I wanted to answer real quick. There were more DNA that was not investigated. Knife sheath could have had more traces. I don't know if they were not investigated. They were not identified, is the case there, right? And those 3 DNA samples, how do they connect to the case? First and foremost, one of them is from a glove that was outside, right? It was inside a glove that was outside of the house. That was found weeks later, when there was tons of people, media, police officers, forensic guys and gals, all these people wearing gloves and black gloves like that out there in that area. So you can't use it against him. I see you, Amy. We'll be pulling you up here in a second. You can't use that against him, right? So it doesn't matter if you go in there and look it up. Now, the other 2 pieces of DNA, what if they are mixed or, something that you can't use against somebody? Or, there was 150 people in that house the night before. The way the defense worded that was that DNA was found in the area, right? So in the room, it could have been anywhere. If it was on the bodies or somewhere closer. She talked about the first sample being in the glove. Don't you think if it was somewhere where it would be really suspicious that she wouldn't have brought that up? I do. I had that blue. It's because you changed my. There it is. Sorry about that. Amy, you're on the show. How's it going?
Hey guys, how are y'all doing?
We're doing good. How's it
Good.
going?
Okay.
Awesome. I just love your perspective and always enjoy listening to you guys. And y'all always, bring some new points to light, which is really refreshing. So we
Thank you.
appreciate y'all. I just kind of wanted to hop on here and talk about some of the things that I've kind of like thought in my mind. And that one of them is I think that Dylan probably identified him from a photo lineup.
Mhm.
Even though his face was covered, his eyes are so prominent and like weird. I hate for lack of a better word.
Yeah.
um, I think that she probably would never forget those eyes, if she saw it. And then also, I believe that he was tipped, that tips were called in about him from people probably at Washington State and possibly his own sister.
Right. I wouldn't be surprised if people did tip it in. I don't think that the tip is what set them to him. And the main reason being is New York Times had said that the IGG came back on December 19th. And when you go and look at the policy for the FBI, they can't utilize the IGG until there's no other suspects, until all law enforcement techniques have been exhausted. So they have to literally have no idea who the suspect is for the FBI to utilize that tool. So that came back December 19th. So that's when they figured out who he was. And that's kind of why all the warrants are out after December 19th. The phone pings were December 23rd. The trash pool was December 27th. And, there was also the airmail article where, what was his name? Blum had indicated that on December 19th, the day that they got their information, according to the New York Times, that the chief had called in people into his room, and they were excited and even identified him having a pregnant smile, and that they had some news and they'd be calling him later. And at that same time, there was the Oregon or that white Elantra that was found out there in Oregon, and 4 hours away, that was crashed without a front license plate or the back one. And in that article, they indicated that they thought that may have been the killers. Now, December 19th, Bryan Kohberger was already in the Poconos. So if they were watching him at that point, they would have known. And they would have not have thought that car out there in Oregon for a second was his. And if we go back to the press releases, they press released that Oregon vehicle twice, the day that it was discovered and the next day when they said it wasn't involved. Now, they didn't send anybody or anything like that. They were able to clarify that pretty quickly. And the reason why I think so was because they already had their suspect. They knew who it was. And the VIN number came back to somebody else. So then, according to the probable cause, they utilize phone plate readers in Colorado, and then also him getting stopped twice in Indiana. And that's how they discovered that he went home to the Poconos. So all those things happened after the 19th. And my reason to believe that that's where they initially got his name. Now, I know a lot of people are going to say, well, the PCA says November 29th, such and such officer found it in WSU. And that might be the case. But it's kind of like the situation with Richard Allen where, he talked to law enforcement in February of 2017, but didn't become a suspect until October of 2022.
Right.
So,
And you have to, and also they have to sift through a lot of information. And it's kind of
100%.
like in this case, just like you're saying, they probably had him on the radar, but everything just started to come together on that date you mentioned. I can't remember. It was,
19th December.
it's just like right when everything started coming together. And I think that's probably when they had sent the DNA off and came back with a profile. And it was like probably happened like right after he left, to head back to Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. And like I said, I mean, I think it was, have there been people that come forward to talk about Bryan Kohberger and the things that they have maybe witnessed or stuff like that? I think so. I mean, there's 400 witnesses against them. Ann Taylor said that they have to go through 400 witnesses. Not that, that tells me that those are 400 witnesses that they've not yet spoken to and that they're having trouble speaking with, which means they're not part of the defense.
mhm. Yeah.
You know what I mean? So,
Yeah. I think so. I mean, the guy is just, he's just, I mean, really the perfect suspect. And I know that maybe sounds unfair to say, but he's just with his past and the Tappa talks that, they pulled up from his teen years and, meat suit stuff and, doesn't feel like he's in his own body. I'm in a video game and how he has no empathy. I mean, it's just like, um, and then, like you say, just even like without any more evidence, the DNA, the single source, which is the keyword DNA that they found, um, along with the car and everything else. I mean, just you'd have to be the most unlucky person in the world, or be the murderer.
yeah,
you
you're
know.
100% right there for sure. But I appreciate you coming on. Thank you so much. We
Oh, thank you
appreciate
so
you coming.
much. Hey, I'm a Texas girl too, so
Nice.
I really appreciate y'all are right up the road from me.
Awesome.
So
Thank you.
Well, thank you, neighbor. We'll see you. We'll see you in the next time we
see you
do this.
soon. All right, bye.
Yeah.
Bye.
Keep enjoying your freedom.
Yeah.
Yes. All right, guys. Y'all have a good night.
You
Take care.
too. All right. There's two
Bye.
comments that I'm going to address. That's going to be it for taking calls or things. The first one is MPD had 3 other suspects they were investigating before the DNA pop BK. Yeah, I mean, the defense talks about them pulling cigarettes secretly, right? That law enforcement did that. First suspect probably was Jack DeCore. I mean, you have an ex-boyfriend lives down the street. They just broke up. She's moving. She had dated other guys in between that time. It looks like a suspect. In fact, early on, they were calling this a crime of passion, right? So early on, they were probably suspecting that it was Jack DeCore. And people act like, and the funny thing is that people act like police can't change their position, their views, or their thoughts because they thought maybe perhaps it was Jack DeCore day one. And they may have thought it was pretty clear as day. And then as the evidence pulled through that it wasn't that type of situation, they started backtracking, started saying that it could have been a burglary, it could have been this, it could have been that. And so, there's sometimes a lot of suspects throughout a case and you clear them. It's if they get cleared, if there's something that indicates that they weren't there and there's clear evidence that they were somewhere else, Do you really need to investigate him further?
No,
What?
but I mean, in some cases, they get cleared, but they get put like on the maybe pile.
I
But
agree with
they
that.
get cleared, you know.
I agree with that, but what I'm trying to say is, if you have irrefutable evidence that this person is cleared, right? Let's say they have video evidence, and let's say Jack Showalter, because everybody likes to use him as another, suspect. And we're not going to be taking any more calls. I know I see somebody back there. We're not going to be doing. We're going to be closing it off after this one. Let's just say he has a ring device at his apartment complex or wherever he lives, and it shows him walking, into his apartment complex at a certain time. And let's just say he walks out at a different time, and it's like 4:00. It's like right smack, or 4:05, right when that white Elantra is passing, in front of the King Road residence. If at 4:05 that car is passing by, and at, what do you call it? And if he's on camera somewhere else, you cleared him. I mean, could he have other involvement? Possibly, but in a situation like this, you would clear him as being the person directly involved. So when people come out and say, well, they were cleared too fast, it's probably because there was something pretty concrete. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so,
And you want to just have this one jump on real quick, and then we call it a night. Is there
I'll let this person, since you're willing. I know you're not feeling it. Nathan Clark, you're on the line. Probably shouldn't have said this. Nathan?
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we can hear you all right. How's it going, Nathan?
Hey, hey, there's a documentary called Into the Abyss, and it's a very famous true crime documentary. And basically, when the guy gets shot, he kind of leaps and he falls on the cigarette butt of the killer. And I think something similar happened with Maddie. I think she felt that knife sheath next to her, and I think she kind of leaned on it a bit. What do you think?
I mean, it's possible. I think that if Bryan Kohberger was wearing those Dickies, which I'm assuming that they're going to claim he was, because they picked up a receipt for it, with that being on there, or a tag. And you don't pick up things and place them into evidence unless you suspect that they could be evidence. All right. So if they found a wrapper for a piece of gum on the floor, and the other wrappers to that same gum package is there, you're not going to pick that up because it's just garbage and trash, right? But I digress. But as far as her moving, yeah, I think so. I mean, there was probably some sort of movement, maybe some sort of struggle. I don't think Bryan Kohberger had. You can't wear a belt with one of those suits, so that's probably the reason why he walked in there with it in his hand. And yeah, I think that there's quite possible during that movement that she rolled on top of it.
Yeah, it just reminds me of that case, and it's like their dying moment. They sense that and just kind of rolled. But anyway, just something to think about. Love the show, guys. Keep up the good work. Talk to you.
Appreciate it, Nathan. Thank you so much.
Take care. Yeah, I think it could have. She could have saw it or happened that way. But to me, I mean, my theory is, I think there was a little bit of a struggle, and she might have kicked the sheets over it, or maybe he pulled the sheets off because they were covered.
No, I think the way it came out was that half of it or most of it was under her, like underneath her, facing down. And so, yeah, she had to have rolled on top of it, or it had to have like rolled down or scooted down against her body. And when he moved over, and the mattress, went up a little bit, it may have kind of like gotten caught underneath that way. But for it to be partially underneath, like half of it at least, I think that she definitely rolled on it.
Yeah.
So, but I think that's Gonna do it, guys. I know one person asked that said, 400 witnesses doesn't mean that they're against him. And I'm not saying that they're against him. I'm saying that they're not for him. These aren't witnesses that are going to go up there and, talk on behalf of Bryan Kohberger. Those witnesses and those that talk that may have something to help him, they probably are talking to her already. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But, that's all I got for you guys today. We'll be back on Friday. I'll probably be sending out some clips of this on tomorrow. Also, if you guys haven't gone to Spotify or Apple Podcasts, you can check us out there. That's where you can find our members podcast. So we had a members only live chat this weekend. And, if you're a member, which I highly recommend you join, you get a part of that. You get to talk with us. It's more of an intimate setting because there's not so many people that are on the live. And you can ask your questions. It doesn't have to be just about the case. Most of the time it is. But, for those that, can't get the membership, which we understand, and you want to listen to that content, it usually airs out a couple of days later. I think it's out already on Apple Podcasts. So just go search up Drunk Turkey Show and you can listen to that podcast in its entirety, or I think Spotify as well, and you can watch it. So there you go, guys. That's going to be it. I appreciate everybody.
We'll try. I got my flu shot like 2 weeks ago, but I still got the dang flu.
It's probably what it is, dude. It's the shot that got you sick.
But test came back positive, so
yeah, true story. Well, with that being said, guys, we're out of here. We'll see you next time.